And we've got a few people that have joined us on the call. Good afternoon, guys. Afternoon. Right. Good afternoon, guys. Well, today we are back with another episode of, getting ready to be employed. Yeah, and today the focus is strictly on the interview process. Structured interview. Is it necessary? What happens during an interview? How should you answer some of the questions? They do say that whole interview process changes a person. People say the weirdest things when they are being interviewed, or they become a totally different person that they will show when they be on the job. And it's very important for recruiters and for the candidates, to really watch what we're going to be talking about today, which is pertinent to helping you get the right hire or help you get the right job. And remember, first impressions last. The interview is your first impressions. Sometimes there's panel interviews and then there's follow-on interviews. If you mess up in that first one, believe me, I think your chances are gone. So we're going to give you some tips, and as always, we do not, obviously, as the South African Chefs Association, travel alone. We bring experts, right? Come speak to us and discuss this very, very important, topic, which is the interview process. Right? We've got people joining us, and just want to say hi to you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. It is a Thursday just before Youth Day, next week, Tuesday. So to everyone, happy Youth Day for next week from all of us right here at South African Chefs Association. And with that, I hope the youth is watching, because our guest knows the ins and out of an interview process. She has 30 years of working, experience, and she's obtained these skills in the following industries, hotel operations. We're talking Southern Sun. We're talking Westcliff. I don't want to mention anymore, but the thing is that she then went into recruitment, right? And this is now her field of study. And today she'll be delving into the interview process. I think you should stay because, first of all, she says the last years in her career was in education. And if anybody's in education, you know how to pass on information. The information that's going to be passed on today will help you get the job to change your future. So, without any further ado, please help me give her a digital round of applause to Audrey from Be Fast Placement. Audrey, how are you?
There we go. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Good, good. I'm all good. And you guys? I hope everybody's happy this morning on this nice and cold, chilly day.
Oh, yes. You know what? I saw some pictures from Cape Town, Audrey, and it's coming this side to Johannesburg. All I'm doing is stocking up on wood because it's going to be fireplace on the weekend.
Oh, wow. That sounds awesome. Well, thanks for the opportunity to chat to everybody again today.
I think, Audrey, this has been a good series that people have been really happy with. The comments, the feedback after we have a session like this, they always talk about, wow, it's helped me. I'm going to try this out. It's very practical stuff, Audrey, things that you cannot use. And thank you so much for bringing that to the table, because all our members, SA Chefs Association, have really been giving these sessions that we've been having a great thumbs up. And today's one, people have been looking for. I think we've hit the nail on the head by doing this one today. The biggest part that I like about the interview process is because it feels like you put on the stage. I don't know, am I the only one that feels that? Like you put on the stage and it's your time to shine, How did you find them as a candidate, Audrey, back in the day when you were interviewed? How did you find them?
Absolutely. You are on stage, sometimes with one person, sometimes with a whole lot of people. But you do need to practice for an interview. You can't just go to the interview and sit there and think, okay, I'm going to wing this. You are on stage, you have to present yourself, you have to make a good first impression, you need to speak well, you need to speak clearly, and obviously make sure that the interview is fun for yourself and for the person who's interviewing you.
And nerves are something that are normal, right?
Absolutely. I'm nervous now.
It's about channeling them correctly.
Correct.
All right, so Audrey, the biggest question people usually mess up with, and this one sets the tone for the rest of the interview. And I used to really mess this one up until I got professional help on, not waffling or just starting my life story from when I was born in the 80s. It's the question about, tell us about yourself. What is the recruiter really looking for there? Because where do I start? Do I start from last year? Do I start from this year? What are the recruiters looking for?
Well, I'm going to share something with you guys. If you could just give me 1 second, I'm going to open it up. There we go. So basically, start off, clients, most interviews, they start off by saying, tell me about yourself. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that we make is that we think they want to know where were we born, and we talk about our school days and our personal lives. But a good tip would be is start off with your personality, and that's a nice way to break the ice. So, I personally, for example, do enjoy being funny and making jokes, but I also, I would use that as an example when I start the interview. So here's an example, being bilingual, I'm home Afrikaans, I sometimes can get my words incorrectly or my tenses wrong. So I would use that as a funny when I start the interview. So tell me about yourself. And I can say, well, just to let you guys know up front that some of my words might come out incorrectly. So just bear with me, it's difficult to be 100% bilingual. That's just an example.
Wow.
And people laugh, just like you've done now. So use your personality and break the ice, because both parties are a little bit nervous because you guys have never met each other.
Yes. And the recruiter can also run the interview for the candidate, correct?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I've seen it myself. I mean, I personally have gone for interviews. It also depends on how they greet you at the time of the interview, and how they sit and how they look at you, and just how they ask you the first question. So of course they can, definitely.
And then after the question of, tell us about yourself, they usually move into obviously now trying to find out your past, and they go into the one about why do you want to leave your current employer, or why did you leave your previous employer? Now that one, usually people get wrong. Some really do go and poke, at the holes of the previous employer. Is that a wise tactic?
Look, I mean, again, I would say be very careful. And I've got a few notes here if anybody wants to take photos of this whilst they're watching. I think the most effective and acceptable reason for leaving your current job must be a positive one and not a negative one. And yes, just 3 examples. Talk about the desire for a career change. I mean, I think most of us do want to leave because we feel like we want to try something else and use the skills that we've obtained in one company to another company. And then obviously answer in a way that demonstrates your better qualities rather than looking for more money. I mean, we can go on and on about this, but commonly we hear people saying negative things. I want more money. I'm bored. I mean, if you're bored in your job, that's a concern, you know what I mean? So just be very careful the reason. So, and the internet also again gives you a whole lot of reasons that you can use. But I think, you need to be very honest and speak from the heart. I'm leaving because I'm looking for a new career change. I'm leaving because I feel that there is no scope for growth. But then you need to be able to prove it. If it's a company that you're working for that's constantly advertising on social media and on the internet for positions, and you're now saying there's no scope for growth. That's a concern. So
Yeah.
you just be very positive when it comes around the reason for leaving.
The worst thing you could do on this question is say, well, you know, my current boss, oh, I can't deal with them. Like at the place, they don't even take care of us. The sugar, there's no sugar. You have to bring your own sugar from home. That place is really not a place for anybody to work. Really, I can't even deal with those people. I'm a winner, you know, and I want to be with winners, and that's why I'm here in this interview.
Yeah, absolutely.
How would that go?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have an example of an interview that I had. The person was a game ranger. Now, you know, game rangers are constantly with people and they need to constantly communicate, and because they're taking these people on the guests on a game drive and they're communicating. And in the interview, I asked him, so now what is your reason for leaving? And he had two reasons. One, he didn't like the long hours. And the second reason was he doesn't like people. Yet he's applying for another game ranger position.
Oh my word! And how could you say that to the people that are hiring you? And then,
Exactly.
then do you see when people are reading a script? Or I'll go in ahead and so regurgitating a script that they memorized, you know, and they go, I'm determined, I pay attention. Can you see that as a recruiter?
Yes, you can. You can. I think your body language and how quickly you answer the questions can prove whether
Mm-hmm.
it's a script or not. But look, I mean, everybody is going to practice and learn some scripts. I mean, I personally
Mm-hmm.
have some scripts for today as well. Just be smart about it. You know, try and make it your own words. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting some advice and ideas. It's just be very, very careful how you answer it. Be slow about it. Try and make it your own words. And again, I mean, have you really experienced it? Is that really honestly what you mean? You can't say something whether it's a script or not if that's not the truth or really what you feel or what you want to say, if that makes sense.
No, I definitely do understand. And then last time when we spoke, there was a lot of research we wanted to actually include, you know, with regards to the person that's going to the interview, knowing the company. How do you answer that company? You know, I mean, that question when they say, you know, if they do ask you what do you know about the company, or did you study the company quite a lot the day before, or is it something you can make calls to the receptionist, you know, find out about the company? How can you really prepare for that question?
Can. I mean, I mean, nowadays, any company is everywhere. You can see them on the internet, you can see them on social media, they are in the news, they're in the newspapers, magazines. It's extremely, extremely important that you go and research the company. And we, especially your younger generation, they tend to not do that. Why would you want to go for a job interview anyway if you don't know the company? So
Mm-hmm.
benefit of the person that's interviewing you, it is beneficial for you personally to make sure that you know who you're going to work for. So just on a few things that I want to show you here is that, yes, definitely look at the company. Something that we need to look at is a company's culture, mission, and values. And your own culture and mission and values needs to
Mm-hmm.
be similar to what the company is. And company sells themselves through their culture, mission, and values. So if that is something that you don't know, how are you going to abide by them? I know a company that's very good at doing that is Advitech. I'm
Mm.
sure people know them. They're very strong in the recruitment side, but they also have a number of educational institutions and private schools. And any person that gets employed by that company, you have to know the company's culture, mission, and vision. They teach
Mm.
you and they actually test you on it. And they monitor you on it. So it's very important to know that. And then have a good understanding of the company's products and services. I mean, I've had people that has actually asked the client, so what do you guys do? What products do you sell? Who's your biggest
Oh,
competitors?
word.
Those things are actually there. Those are the things that the client wants to know, do you know?
Mm.
very important that you understand their products and services. And it's also a nice thing that if you come from a similar industry or you have any knowledge that relates to their service or their product, that this is the time to bring it in if you did your homework. And then, of course, know who the key players are in the field. Let's just use an example like MTN. So MTN has got competition. Who's their competition? It's Telkom, it's LC, it's Rain. So clients want to hear that you know who the competitors are. I mean, in the hospitality industry, we want to know who's the good chefs out there, who's the good restaurants, who, you know, what's a good brand.
Yeah.
If you're going into sales within the hospitality industry, we want to know, for example, who's the West Cliffs competition, who's the competition, because you guys, we all in the same market. And a client wants to know, okay, so when you know who the key players are, how are you going to contribute to making sure that we are the key player?
Yep. And I think it's very, very important. It shows preparedness. It also just shows that you are ready to contribute. How will you contribute to my company if you don't even know what we're selling? I think that must have been a very shocking interview that you had when the person was like, what are you guys selling? That must have been funny.
Absolutely.
And then a question that also people mess up on or end up blowing their horn too much when they ask them about achievement. You know, like, what have you achieved? What are you supposed to mention here? Did you mention, oh man, I used to be a captain in my basketball team in grade 7. I also used to be a scholar patrol. What things are you talking about here when they say, tell us about your achievement?
Well, first of all, you need to make sure that your achievements is relevant and it's recent. We tend to go back, and I think we've had these conversations again in the past as to how long does our CV have to be. But make sure that your achievements is relevant and it's something that the client would want to hear that can be related to what they are looking for. So, for example, if the client is looking for a chef that is going to be very creative and get them onto social media and advertise them. So you get your chef that's in the kitchen is very focused on just the cooking side, and then you get your creative chefs that's out there and is very good in marketing. And in this case, you would say my achievement was in my last company, I took the kitchen and I ran all our recipes on social media, or I was in a talk show, or I did a TV presentation once a week. So make sure that your achievements are relevant. If they in the job spec say we want somebody with a certain qualification, well, if you've got the qualification, that's an achievement. I managed to get a degree in culinary arts. I participated in competitions and I came first or second or third. You might not have won, but I've represented the country. So it's very important that you say things that's achievable, that the client wants to hear, that is going to say, okay, well, this is going to help us if we employ this person.
So much. And most positions, we know, especially the employment situation in South Africa, they are never uncontested. You never walk in there knowing you're the only candidate, and basically the job is yours. You're always competing with millions of CVs, So there's a question they're always going to ask you, to say, what sets you apart from the person that just walked out that we interviewed before you? And how do people really, first of all, can you tell us, how do people mess this one up? And then what are the tips we can use to really answer this question well?
It's a good question. I think most of the times people, the person that's being interviewed, you need to also ask questions. I mean, interview is a two-way street. So somewhere during the interview, you can actually ask the person who's interviewing you, so what are you guys looking for in this position? They will tell you what they're looking for, and then the opportunity will come up where they will ask you a question. And you can actually answer that question because you're going to remember what they've actually just told you what they're looking for. So they pretty much have guided you. So I think somewhere before they go into a lot of detail into them interviewing you, try and find out what are they looking for in a person. And I don't think there's anything wrong by saying to the client, so what worked for the person in the last position? Or, you know what I'm saying is the clients will say, well, we had so-and-so working for us, and one of the things that they really struggled with. And then that's also an opportunity where you can say, oh, okay, that's interesting. Well, in my current position, that's one of my strengths. So I think it's also very important that you listen to the questions. I think very often we hear the question, but we're not answering because, you know, we're so busy thinking of what they're going to ask next that we need to just stop thinking ahead, listen to the question and try and answer it so that we don't mess it up.
Mm-hmm. And then before we get into just general tips, you know, dress code. Let's talk dress code. What's the worst you've seen in terms of people walking into that room?
Well, the minute you walk into a room, you have to give your first impression. So it's the way you greet the person, the way you make eye contact, your body language, the way we shake hands. Of course, now we're not going to shake hands anymore, but and then obviously, if it's a male and you're being interviewed by a female, you stand and you wait for the female to sit down before you sit down. You know, it's that old-fashioned etiquette. You wait for them to point out where you need to sit. You don't just go and sit down at the table. You know what I mean? So little things, your body language. Am I going to sit up straight, or am I immediately going to fall back in my chair and look comfortable? So first impression and the way you're dressed, the way you make eye contact, the way you smile with your eyes. So all these little things, and we haven't started the interview process yet.
And then most people think you walk in, you need to be chatty, just to relax, you know? When can chatting be a bit too much? Like walking in, hi, Audrey, hi, how are you? Audrey, hi, how are you? Oh, and I start telling you, you know, on my way here, oh, you should have seen the traffic. And we start speaking, or I tell you about maybe my son's rugby game. You're like, oh, you know, on the weekend, I was at my son's rugby game. How much could be too much?
I mean, I've seen a lot of interviews where there is a lot of chattiness. I think it depends on the person who's interviewing you. They generally, I would advise that you wait for the cue. If that person starts speaking about their children or the rugby game, they're trying to break the ice. Okay, so I would interviewer break the ice, and you can add on to that or share a similar story. But I definitely wouldn't say you start the chit chat first. Definitely not.
And then with regards to colors of your suit, we've seen very colorful suits. Is that still the recommended? Because there's people that usually would use their matric bond suit because their first interview, it's the only suit that they have. So now you find that that's the option that they're going to use. Is that advisable? Use a bright color.
Yes, yeah, very interesting question. No, I think you need to keep it professional. That's why we always say to chefs, wear your chef's uniform. If you're a receptionist, go in your reception uniform. So we're very lucky in the hospitality industry that we get to wear a uniform, which is very professional. So I've also always said to my candidates, when you go for an interview, wear your uniform. It also gives an idea to the client of what you're going to look like in a uniform. Look, in other industries, unfortunately, where they don't have uniforms, we have seen the silver suit and the gold suit and the white suit. It's an absolute no-no. It doesn't go down well. Stick to the black. But interviews have also slightly changed. People don't always wear suits anymore. So they will dress up with a very smart black pants, very smart shirt and a tie. So things have gone a little bit more casual. But again, I think it needs to be based on the homework that you've done on the client. If you're going to go to an auditing firm, you're going to dress in a full suit. But if you're going to go to a more casual, say, printing company, then you don't need to wear a suit. So that's also all depends on the homework that you've done.
Definitely, it definitely does. And so with the interview process, there's quite a lot of things. We could go on for days. What are the most important tips that you have for us, Audrey, that people could really take before we also get questions from the guys in the chat? We are also looking at getting questions. So please do send us your question. We've got Tandazi left from Johannesburg. I'm just checking here on Facebook, Audrey, just to see what questions we have right here. We've got Antonio Wellington, we've got Trafford White, we've got 707 people watching us today right here. And a lot of people really want to find out, and I think it's a very important topic, hence the amount of people here. But with regards to question, we've got one here from Hassan that says, I think the question that they've asked them to say, what is the future operating plan? I don't know if it's a question that Hassan would ask to the recruiter, or is it you asked to Hassan? Anything you can give on that question, Audrey?
Is that the question that says, what is the future operating plan?
Yes.
I don't think that is a question to ask straight away, okay?
Yeah.
Towards the end, if the client gives you an opportunity, have you got any questions, and you say, what is your future operating plan? I think it's very difficult for anybody right now to be able to say what our future is going to be like. Maybe this question would have worked last year or the year before, but as if I was going to interview you, I would say, well, you need to be a little bit more detailed. What do you mean with what is the future operating plan as well? So I think it needs to be a little bit more of a specific question, but I just want everybody out there to understand that nobody really knows the future of what's going to happen. I mean, yesterday I saw all the changes that's happening in the restaurant industry. That was not their future operating plan. So maybe now's not a good question to ask.
Definitely. And then with regards to salary, is the interview the right place to go ahead and say, when will you guys think about giving me a raise? Is that the right place to ask that question?
No, and absolutely no. Look, a lot of people go to an interview through a recruitment agency. So recruitment agencies will discuss the package that's on offer prior to the interview. Okay, so you already have an idea of what the client's salary is going to be. You have the opportunity to ask the recruitment agency all the questions that you want to ask with regards to benefits and things like that. But there is no ways that I would suggest that you ask about salary or salary increases or anything like that in the first interview.
Yeah.
The client bring it up and they do ask you, well, what's your salary expectations? Your recruitment agents would have said to you, worst case scenario, the client is paying 30. Then don't go and tell the client my salary expectations is 40. You need to go with what the recruitment agencies has told you up front. Sometimes it's also just good to say, look, the agency has discussed the salary with me, but I'm open. I'm happy to hear what you feel that you could offer for the skills that I can bring to the table. So, and that generally normally happens on the second and third interviews. I've had candidates who went for the fifth interview and the salary wasn't discussed. If it's an interview that you get directly with a client and nobody has discussed the salary with you, once again, don't bring up salary until the client actually brings it up first. And then be very, very careful. Don't just go out there and say a salary. It might actually close the doors for you. So yeah, it might be an opportunity where you can say to the client, well, I'm currently on this salary, and some people are happy to move for this. So other would say, I would like to have a slight increase to what I'm currently earning.
And then there's also questions that people find really difficult to answer that I'm getting right here on Facebook, talking about conflict, when they say you've been in a conflict in a previous company with maybe a colleague. How did you solve it? What was the response? They feel that it's negative to talk about, a conflict. and what if you don't have any?
I don't for 1 minute believe that none of us haven't had conflict. I think we all do somewhere. You've just got to be very careful. People ask that question because they do want to see, it goes back to the company's culture and their values. They want to hear how you handle conflict. And I mean, use your examples of where you've actually used conflict. Don't try and give a textbook answer. Think about a time in the company where you've had conflict and tell them, this is the situation, this is what happened, this is who I had the conflict with, this is why we had the conflict. And then I want to hear the result. And the result has to hopefully be a positive result. This is how we dealt with the conflict.
And then the next one, where people feel it's shining a light on your negative aspect, is tell us about your weaknesses. Like, how do you get there with the weakness?
We all have weaknesses. You've just got to be smart and know. If you know what your weaknesses are, you will also know how to correct it. So if a client does ask you what your weakness is, point them out. Say to them, this is my weakness, but then add a positive to it. But I'm aware of it, and this is what I do to try and overcome those weaknesses. Don't just accept that this is my weakness and leave it at that. This is my weakness, and this is what I'm constantly trying to do. An example could be somebody who's extremely disorganized and is not very good with filing. So you can say, my weakness is filing, and that's all of us. It's very bad with filing. But how do I deal with my weakness? I have a routine. I come in every morning 15 minutes earlier. I put a whole pack on my desk, and I quickly file it before I start my day. So the worst part of my day, I start off with first. So you're showing the client that you are trying to work on it. As an example.
I think that's a very, very good example. Just shows that you're already working on it, because then people are afraid to answer that question, thinking, oh my word, I'm going to just show my weaknesses. Maybe rather just say, I don't have any weaknesses. How do you act as a recruiter when someone says that?
Yeah, no, I go straight back to them and I say to them straight, it's impossible. Think carefully. You must have weaknesses. And we also, as recruiters and clients, we've got ways to pick up somebody's weaknesses. I mean, if I can give you an example, I once did interview for a secretary. And there you obviously need to be very good at typing, you need to be excellent at filing, and you need to be very good at message taking. So those are like 3 of the main criteria. So in the interview, I would say, so what is your weaknesses? And her first thing was typing. But you need to do the job. So you've also got to be very careful when you answer your weaknesses. If your weakness is going to prevent you from getting the job, then don't answer it. Make sure, again, going back to what I said earlier on, if typing is a weakness, then don't even apply for the position, full stop. So look at your weaknesses prior to actually applying for a position.
And then most of the time, then people will choose someone to be called, right, for reference check. People are asking here, how many people should you, put on your reference, and which type of people should you put there?
Okay, good question. Always give references for at the most your 3 previous positions, depending how long you've been in a position. It doesn't help giving a reference from 10 years back or 5 years back. People want to know relevant information. References has to be somebody that you reported to. So your direct manager in the previous company, because they're the ones who's going to be able to say whether you can do the job or not. And something that I do want to highlight to everybody out there is that clients do their own references as well. And as recruiters, if you give us a name, we obviously will never ever contact anybody for a reference without getting your full 100% permission to do so. And at that stage of taking the reference details down, we will ask you, is there any concerns if we phone your previous manager for a reference? There's the time to point it out and rather be honest. Because what we would do is we would phone the company and we would actually confirm that that person was really your manager. And we've had many situations where we phoned and that person didn't even report to that person. So you need to be extremely honest with your references. References are double checked by agencies and clients and the HR department. And it's got to be somebody that can tell us how you did the job. Now, there is going to be times when your reference is, you're worried that they're going to give you a poor reference. That is something that you need to be upfront with and say, especially to an agent, this is the case, so that they can upfront prep the clients and say, listen, chances are they are going to get a bad reference because the manager is very upset that you're leaving. And there is managers that's going to be upset and not going to want to give a reference.
Yeah.
So, and then you of course get character references. It depends from company to company. Some companies will say we'd like to have some character references. Some companies would say if you were in sales, we'd like to get reference from a few of your clients. But most importantly, references need to be relevant. You must have reported to them. And the last thing I want to ask about references, please make sure that we have the most recent telephone number. You are the one who's looking for a job. We as recruiters and the clients do not have time to run around and trace your references. We can't find your references, then we move on to the next candidate. Make sure you provide the correct information and let them know that somebody's going to call for a reference. It's just the right thing to do. It's courtesy. And also be very careful. If you're going to go to a lot of recruiters, you also don't want your previous boss to have 7 phone calls in one day, because that might also count against you. So just be smart about it and be respectful to the person who's going to get the reference and obviously get their permission as well.
Thank you so much, Audrey. All right, so I'd like for you to just give us a few closing tips for the guys that are watching on Facebook. I think this was a really, really good session that gave us a the full process, how to handle it. And I know there are more questions. You know, they could ask you what motivates you. They could ask you, you know, what are your strengths? They could ask you so many questions. They could even give you a pen and say, sell me this pen if you are entering into sales, or how many people into a limousine. You know, people can ask you so many weird questions. It's all about preparation. You know, I use the 5 P's, Audrey. Proper preparation prevents.
Absolutely.
I make sure that I study the company. I make sure that I study how I'm going to answer those questions. Basically, I do a role play with myself in the mirror. I'll ask myself, Lebu, what are your strengths? And I'll answer it as if I'm in front of them. I don't think about it when I'm there at the interview, because that's when you're going to go blank. That's when, and I've done those, you know, when in my younger days, where you just go and you just go blank because you came in to wing it. You know, I thought my cool personality was going to win me this job. But once they ask the questions, my mind can't travel back enough to remind me of that situation. For example, a conflict at work. For example, maybe a time I worked as a team and I helped the team win something, you know, things like that. And preparation has been what has set me apart. From your side, Audrey, what are the last closing tips with regards to the interview?
I'm going to share another screen. Just bear with me. Okay, so obviously, and we pretty much have covered it already, but here's sort of the few things that I think is very important. Obviously, you need to make a first impression. And when I say make a first impression, that means from the minute you walk through the door. Through the door with the receptionist, the way you sit in reception and the way you're waiting. Practice good manners and body language. Now, you know, if you're going to sit in the reception, sit up straight. Don't fiddle, don't sit on your cell phone, just watch your body language, because a lot of times the employer will go and ask the reception, so what was this person like in reception? And a lot of companies, believe it or not, actually have cameras in the reception area. So nothing stops them from going to have a look at your behavior in the reception area. And this is now not to make you nervous or anything, but this is a fact of life, you know. We want to see if people have good manners. I think you also, and this is something that often happens, is that we allow the client to do all the interviews. And then when they ask us, do you have any questions? We say no. And that's not practicing. That's not giving you an opportunity to see, do I want to work for this company? And that's, I think, where a lot of problems come in once you actually join a company. And all of a sudden now you've been there for the first 3 months and things are not going the way you wanted them to go. It's because during the interview process, you didn't have the question to ask, what's my working hours? What do you want from us? What does the job entail? So it's very, very important that you actually ask questions as well. But make it relevant questions. Don't ask the client about the future. Don't ask them how quickly are you going to be promoted. Those are not the times to ask them. It needs to be relevant questions. Okay. I think most importantly is be authentic. Don't pretend to be somebody that you're not. And something also, when we're nervous, we tend to just ramble a whole lot of things. Be calm, take a breath when you give an answer. Just have some time to pause so that the client can take it in, you can take it in, but that both parties could also hear what the other person had to say. And show interest in the company. And that goes back to where you have line-up questions. Show interest. I see, but also by showing interest, you can, at this stage, use things that you've read about the company. I see that you were in the news last week. What a lovely documentary that they had on you guys. I see that your CEO is being nominated as CEO of the year. I had a look at your LinkedIn profile and I see you've been with the company for 20 years. That excites me terribly because I want to work for a company where I'm going to stay. So you know what I mean? If you know about the company, you are able to show interest. Never ever say the information is on my resume. And I want to use an example here. When I was at the school, some teacher came in for an interview, and as a teacher, we need to, as teachers, we needed to make sure that teachers have a good handwriting. They need to have attention to detail, and there's a lot of paperwork around being a teacher. So, and guys, this is just a tip out there. Don't think an application form is just an application form. A lot of people actually judge you on your application form. So we gave this lady quite a lengthy documentation to fill in as she arrived at the reception area. And she said, I'm sorry, I'm not filling in this document because everything is on my resume. Well, she never got the interview. We sent her home. I wasn't prepared to interview her because in my mind, if you're not prepared to fill in an application form, then you're not going to want to do a lot of things that we're going to ask you in the company. So advice, guys, when you get, and nowadays we fill in a lot of forms online, and I know it's tedious and it's repetitive and it's annoying, but people judge on how, do you just leave questions blank? How detailed do you fill them in? Is your handwriting neat? So the stage of an application form or an online document, if they say to you, complete the document in detail, complete the document in detail. They ask you to attach something, attach it. Those are all things that creates a first impression. Then obviously, we've mentioned it, never ever discuss the salary until the client brings it up. And never say, I don't know. The clients in the interview are going to ask you, can you do this, or you know this, don't know. It's far better to say, I haven't been exposed to that, but this is what I would do, whether should I be given the opportunity. But don't use the words, I don't know. Get creative with the wording. And never ask the company what they do. We've covered that. And lastly, never say, I don't have any questions. You must have questions. So these are just a few general tips, but there's so many others that's out there and that we can still cover.
One that people usually ask a lot is the, when can I begin? Is that a good one to ask?
Sorry, repeat that again. My apologies.
Another question that people usually ask at the end is, when can I begin? Is that a good way to end an interview?
I think it depends on the person and personality. I wouldn't be scared to say that, to be honest with you. But I think you need to read the other person. So yes and no, I would say 90% of the time, not a good thing. But I think with any conversation that we have, it depends on the person who's being interviewed.
And the interview is really not done until you've actually left the premises.
Until you've left the premises, and probably any conversations that is taking place thereafter, follow-up calls, references. So an interview is actually not done until you've got the offer. On a positive side, and I know there's people that's going to go for a lot of interviews because of the job market. I just want to say to everybody, just remember, you don't necessarily are going to get the first job, but every single interview is a practice for the interview that's going to get you the job. So go back when you get home and say, right, what did I do wrong in this interview? Okay, they asked me these questions. How would I answer them next time? So you need to analyze your interview as quickly as possible so that you can prepare yourself for the next interview. So you might have 3 to 4 interviews. Don't be negative. Just remember, it's a practice session for the right interview.
I think attitude really is a big factor here, because you are in the job market. Not be despondent, do not really get angry with yourself if you're not succeeding as you go. It is coming, and the right job will fit you really well. And sometimes you have to go through some hoops, before you get to, the one that you want. And you end up getting into a rhythm, actually. When I was young, you end up getting into a rhythm of interviews. Once you get the job, you miss the hunt, because now, you're stuck into this job. So make sure that you get stuck in the right one. Right? And one advice that I would give, Audrey?
Sorry, I lost you there. You broke up.
One advice I would give is to make sure that, you choose one that really fits you well. You don't want to be stuck in a job that doesn't fit you. And you're trying to force yourself to fit into that culture. Understand? Yes, it is a bad job market right now, and we might be desperate. Yes, maybe something you have no control of. You might have to take any job. But once you get in the position of being a professional and really focusing on your career, choose ones that have a culture within that company that really fits you well. It really allows you to shine. Sometimes you could be in the right job in the worst environment. And that could really, really harm your performance.
Absolutely, and that's again why it's so important to do research about the company and know what the company is about. Companies are all over the place. They're on Facebook, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram. You can get a very good idea of what a company is about, and look at who's working for them in LinkedIn and where did they work before. But I think when you go into an interview with a mind of, I'm going to just have fun, I'm going to enjoy this interview. If I don't get the position, I've learned a new thing. I've learned about a new business. Now I know how they operate. Other people who didn't get to go for an interview at this company might not know certain things. Now you do, because you had an opportunity to have a one-on-one with somebody in the company. So always take every single interview as a learning opportunity. And I think you immediately know from the minute you walk through the door, you have that sixth sense. You know, this is where I want to be. By the way, the receptionist greets you, the security guard greets you. When you walk down the passages, be observant. Look at what the people look like. Do they look happy in their offices? When they're in open plan, does the rest of the people greet you? And that's also something very important, is a lot of offices are open plan now. So you tend to walk through the open plan before you get to the interviewing room. Make eye contact with people and greet them. You know what I mean? It's amazing to see how many people that is actually employed in the company would go to the interview and say, no, we didn't like that person because they didn't even greet us when they're walking through. Well, they say, oh, we really like that person. They gave us such a beautiful smile. So again, it's really your first impression the whole way through. But authentic first impressions, humble first impressions, and Manners. Manners is very important.
Mhm. All right, and I think everybody enjoyed this session today. I surely did. And as much as you can know these things, Audrey, it's always good to rehash them, and it really just comes back. And to the job seekers out there, do not despair. These sessions are recorded, and we'll save them on Facebook and other social media platforms for South African Chefs Association. Make sure that you can just, when it's time for your interview, because some of you might be in lovely jobs that you don't want to leave right now. But when the time comes, when you want to move up, you want to go and try something new, these tips are for you. And you can just rewatch them, because these are timeless tips that will work for any job, any interview. It's about how you prepare for it. Remember, they're looking for you. The only thing is, bring your whole self to the interview. Bring your whole self. And a few more words just from you, Audrey, before we close.
No, I think you've pretty much have covered everything, guys. Just be positive. The positions are going to come back. Life, I can see a drastic change from the last time we spoke. Just be positive. Work on your CV. Remember what we said in previous webinars. Make sure that your CV has got a good introduction. Make sure that the person on the other side wants to interview you. And when you get that interview, make sure that you're on time. Behave well in the interview. Do the interview. Have fun with it. And just stay positive. The job is out there. It's just a matter of which one's going to be yours. Don't give up too quickly. And remember, looking for a job, it's not 5 minutes in the mornings and 5 minutes in the evenings. Allocate a decent amount of time a day. Dress up whilst you're looking. There's people who might turn around and say, I want to see you in 10, 15 minutes. Great, I'm on my way. I'm already dressed. It just makes it a lot easier when you're also dressed for the search.
Thank you so much, Audrey. For people that are going for interviews or planning to go soon, now you know what to expect from this discussion, and I hope you feel more confident, more relaxed, and we've helped you to feel better prepared ahead of the time when you go for an interview. From us right here at SA Chefs Association, these are one of the reasons why we say you need to make sure that you stay with an organization that's been with us for over 40 years, helping best in the industry become better. And that's what we've done right here with these sessions called Be Prepared to Be Employed. And we'll be back with Audrey, I'm sure, and our other ladies, Karen and Sarah, who are watching. And we'll be back to really give you what you're looking for. So on the comments, let us know what topics you want us to discuss, and what things you want to really talk and discuss, and for us to show you right here, because we want to make sure we bring the information you need right here at home while we are during this lockdown. So thank you so much for joining us. Have yourself an amazing weekend. It is a long weekend, I'm sure. So make sure you stay safe. There's a cold front coming to those in Gauteng. Keep warm and make sure that we see you right here next time. Bye, Audrey. Have yourself an amazing day.
Pleasure. Bye, everyone.